So hello and welcome to the AS and A-Level Python series, and in this video I'm going to be looking at the syntax of Python. So before we proceed with the tutorial, I just want to make a few assumptions. I assume that you already know what Python is, that it is a high-level programming language, and I'm going to assume that you also have a Python interpreter installed on your machine. And I'm also going to assume that you at least have an IDE, that is an integrated development environment installed. So you could be using PyCharm, you could be using Jupyter, or you could be using IDO. So I don't really place restrictions on which type of IDE that you can use. I will leave that to you. But basically, I'm just assuming that you have Python installed on your machine. So for my setup, I am currently using Python 3.12. So in order for you to check the Python version that you have installed on your machine, you just open your terminal or your command prompt, then you type Python version, then you should see the version number in the command prompt or in the terminal or PowerShell in Windows, right? So you can see that currently I'm running Python 3.12.1. So that's how you can check if you have Python installed. Then really, again, the IDE, it's entirely up to you. Whatever you want to use, it's still fine, as long as it gets the job done. So in this tutorial, we are just going to look at the general syntax of Python. And you already see that I have a couple of comments going on right here in this particular script that I have. So the name for any Python code that you are going to write, it's going to be called the Python script, yeah? So let's just dive right in. So Python, as we did a little earlier, is a high-level programming language, and it is mostly, actually it is entirely interpreted, right? It's an interpreted language, meaning to say that the translation software that converts the script from a high-level human-readable language to a low-level machine language that can be understood by the processor is an interpreter, yeah? So basically, Python is heavily dependent on indentation, and in other words, we can say that indentation is everything in Python. Python uses indentation to define control and loop constructs. So you might be familiar with maybe pseudocode, right? In pseudocode, we make use of indentation as well to show belonging of statements. Like for instance, if you are to create an if statement, you would realize that any statements that belong to the if statement, they tend to be indented underneath the if statement. So Python, it actually relies on the same principle of white space. So Python uses indentation to define control and loop constructs. It is dynamically typed, unlike Java or other languages like VB, C#, C++, PHP, JavaScript. Python is dynamically typed, right? Meaning to say that you do not need to instantiate, or rather you do not need to create and to declare a variable before you can actually use it. So the type or the data type of a particular variable is going to be determined upon runtime. So that's Python for you, right? So we say in that case it is dynamically typed. So the opposite of dynamically typed is statically typed, right? Languages like Java, we say they are statically typed. You have to first declare a variable before you can actually make use of it. Then so this contributes to Python's readability. So here we are making reference to the indentation feature of Python, right? However, it requires the programmer to pay close attention to the use of white space, right? So you should be very careful of how you use your white spaces in Python, because it relies on white space in order to show blocks of code, as well as to show to define control, as well as loop constructs. So I think I've done enough talking in this particular tutorial, because remember, the whole point of this series is to make sure that you spend much of the time actually following along with the tutorial, right? So you should be following along ways to type your code. So there's not going to be much talking in these episodes. Expect us to be writing scripts through and through. So before we get started, let's actually just go ahead and look at the Python keywords, because any high-level programming language is going to have a set of reserved or special words that we make use of, right? And what we do is that we write those the code in a particular way obeying the syntax rules or making use of those keywords. So what you're going to do is we're just going to look at all the Python keywords that we can make use of, or rather that we will be seeing as we progress with the tutorial, or with the tutorials rather. So I'm simply going to first import keyword. Then after I import keyword, I'm going to create a variable called reserved underscore keywords. Then I'm going to create, inside of that particular variable, I'm going to store a list. Actually, what I'm defining in this case is actually a list. I know we haven't done much Python, but just follow along for now. I'll explain it as we go. So we want to get keyword, then from the keyword we want to press the dot. Depending on the ID that you are using, you get these syntax suggestions, but in the event that you don't get these syntax suggestions, I just want you to type dot, then KW list. Basically, it's going to create a keyword list, which is basically a set, or rather a collection of items. Then what we want to do is we simply want to print reserved keywords, right? Then we are done. Then we are simply going to press on the play button there, and what you should see in the console is that you are going to get a list. So this particular text that I'm highlighting in blue right there, you see where I have the opening bracket and the closing bracket, box brackets that is, and inside I have all those words, false, none, true, and as is it. Those are basically the Python keywords, right? And they are being displayed in the form of something that we call a list in Python. Yeah. All right. So now maybe what I can do to make this even more human readable, I'm just going to clear out my console. Come back to the script, right? Instead of getting rid of that code, maybe I can just comment it out like that. And then, so in order for you to comment out code, you just press Control and / on the keyboard, and it should comment out a particular line. This applies in most IDEs. I'm not really sure about Python, PyCharm, but for the most part, any IDE really does support this feature of commenting out a line. So we just want to comment out that line. Then we want to make use of a for loop to print all these words in a list, as it were. So we want to say for word is just a temporary variable name for the current word in. So we want to say for a word that is in reserved keywords. Okay, if I can just, a word in reserved keywords, what do I want to do? Right, I put a colon. Then notice when I put a colon and press enter, my cursor is going to be indented 4 spaces inwards. So this shows that the code that is coming up now, it belongs to the what? It belongs to the reserved. It belongs to the for statement that we have going on there. So what do you want to do? You simply want to print word. Yeah, and that's all we have to do really. So let's go ahead and press run. So this time around, you see that instead of us getting a list, right, we are getting this nice, remember, a list in this case is a data type, right? Don't confuse it with a list of maybe a grocery list or something, or a noisemakers list. I don't know. So you should always remember that a list in Python, basically we are talking about an array. Just think of it as an array. Yeah. So instead of getting that list that we are getting, we are now getting our text, or rather our keywords displayed in this format. So this is basically the way we can display them in a more human readable way. So you can see all those words: pass, raise, return, try, while. So those basically are what are Python keywords. And with keywords now, you cannot make use of keywords as variable names or as identifiers in your program. So that's one thing that you always need to be wary of, right? You cannot make use of any of these words as an identifier in your code, otherwise your code is not going to work. Alright, so maybe what we can do is we can count the number of keywords that we have in Python. So I'm just going to come back up here in the script, and I'm going to declare a variable called count. Then I want to come back in the body of the for loop, Then what I want to do is that for each time I print a particular word, I want to count. I want to increment the count by 1, is it? Then I print that word, then increment the count, print that word, increment the count, until I have run out of words that are inside of the reserved keywords list, is it? Then after I've done all of that, I simply want to come out of the loop, and I want to print Python is a total of, then I put a comma because that's the way you concatenate things in Python, then another comma, then open quotes, keywords, then I'm done, right? So basically what I want to do is that I want to say Python is a total of, then whatever the current value of count is, I will print that as the number of keywords that are available in Python. So let me just save that and run so that you can actually see this in action. So when I press play, you realize that first I get all the what. Actually, let me just clear out my console there. Then let me just close out of it, then run again. So you notice that I get all the keywords as before, but after that I'm getting this line which says Python has a total of 35 keywords. So in other words, Python uses 35 keywords. So those 35 keywords are the keywords that you're going to be using to write any script that you can think of, is it? Any script that you can think of, you can just write it making use of those 35 keywords. And of course it now comes down to the way you sequence or the way you arrange your keywords, but basically that's just about it. Yeah. Alright, so I think that's just about it for this tutorial. I think we've gone through the syntax of Python, and maybe we did write a little bit of Python, and maybe sometimes you might not be familiar with what we wrote here, but I promise you it's going to become more and more clearer as we progress with the tutorials. But other than that, I think that's just about it. I'll see you in the next one.